9 days ago, I posted my first ever FNAF theory, and it was met with astounding support. To be sentimental for a small moment, the success of that video has legitimately made me more happy than I can express in words. This franchise and community has meant so much to me. To finally not only publish my first theory, but to be met with support has been a dream come true. Thank you. But that's enough personal information for the internet. On to today's theory. In my last theory, I pieced together the hidden identities of the MCI victims, the first appearance of Cassidy in the games, and why William Afton would choose those 5 kids as the victims to his horrific actions. Under the video, one commenter, Arlox5092, asked a very vital question that I also found myself asking as I was writing the script for that first theory. How would it go about explaining William's murder of Charlie Emily? She is also most likely the first person Afton killed as well, and without a motive. And that question is what I am to answer today. Why would William Afton kill Charlie Emily? I believe the answer lies buried deep under the Fazbear Entertainment molehill, otherwise known as the Pizzaplex. The fucking Mimic! Now, I will allot the next 5 seconds for groans and sighs. Still here? Please still be here. Fantastic. Because I am dead serious. But just hear me out, and I think you may be convinced yourself. In Secret of the Mimic, you, as Arnold, wander around the decrepit, abandoned costume manor in order to find and capture the proprietary technology that Fazbear Entertainment contracted Edwin Murray to create. While in the costume manor, you can collect a series of emails that tell the story of Edwin and his employees in the final days of the costume manor, as Edwin slowly descended into madness around the loss of his wife Fiona and son David. However, there is in fact a third party present in the emails, one that isn't a Murray family member or employee of the costume manor. The mysterious emailer seems to be sharking the employees of Murray's costume manor by offering them managerial positions at one of the new franchise locations, signing the email WA, William Afton. Now, if you've spent more than 5 minutes in this franchise, that came as no surprise to you. And in fact, that is not even the William Afton email that's important in today's video. It's this one. In this email, we see that Fazbear Entertainment, and by extension, William Afton, have fully acquired Murray's costume manor, the land it sits on, and all the technology inside. But why would Afton do this? It wasn't like Murray was opening his animatronic pizza joint to compete with Fredbear's. And I believe the answer lies in one of the audio logs we find.
Project update. I figured it out. There's a leak. Someone told them about M2. Well, they can't have it. Every copy has failed. I don't even know why it worked the first time. But it did. It's just not ready.
The existence of the M2 program has been leaked by an MCM employee to Fazbear Entertainment, and now Fazbear, William, is pressuring Edwin to hand it over, only to be met by Edwin's rage, most likely due to his obsession with using the Mimic to recreate his own family. But none of it ends up mattering. Edwin ends up going missing, most likely dead, killed by his own creation, and William Afton acquires Edwin's life's work anyway, including the Mimic blueprints and program. Now, an animatronic like the Mimic would be a game changer for Fazbear Entertainment, and William knows this. An animatronic that can change its shape to fit any exoskeleton and change its behavior to match the current character? It would be such an upgrade to the current endoskeletons that Henry was making for Fredbear's. And now he has the blueprints to make 1 million if he wanted, with only one issue. Edwin is missing and can't make the animatronics. Easy solution. Henry will make them. Him and Edwin were already close friends, evidenced by Edwin affectionately referring to Henry as Hen in his emails. And Henry is a genius roboticist as is. Surely he can recreate the mimic, especially with the original blueprints in his hand. But another issue arises. Henry can't crack it. Even if he follows the blueprint down to each minuscule note, Henry can't give life to his mimic the same way that Edwin did. Frustrated, William turns to any and all last notes by Edwin, turning over the costume manor and Edwin's house in search of any detail they missed to recreate this marvel of technology. William doesn't find any blueprints though, just Edwin's sob story about his dead wife and son. Actually, it's pretty funny. Edwin wasn't really successful with the mimic until his wife died, and M1 came to life. Then his son died and M2 came to life. Edwin thought it was possession, their soul clinging onto the mimic exoskeleton. But that can't be right, can it? Of course not. Maybe, just maybe, the grief around his family dying gave Edwin the proper motivation to recreate his family, resulting in the mimics. It certainly makes much more sense than haunted robots. So maybe then, if Henry went through something similar, he would also unlock the secret of the mimic. Maybe if he lost his family, he would be motivated, like Edwin was, to recreate the mimic. When the short story about Edwin Murray first came out, everybody assumed that Edwin and David were simply a parallel to Henry and Charlie. After all, a single, neglectful, genius roboticist father creates an advanced animatronic to watch his kid, only for his kid to tragically die to his father's negligence. And then, Secret of the Mimic came out. And suddenly, Edwin and David exist in the game continuity as well. Which meant that Edwin and Henry could not just be parallels to each other, since they coexist and are friends. Which brings me to a quote from William Afton himself in the novel The Fourth Closet. "Recreating the accident. That is the duty and honor of science. To replicate the experiment and obtain the same result." David was an accident. The result was the mimic. William would recreate the accident with Charlotte in hopes of obtaining the same result. Charlotte wasn't murdered solely out of jealousy and rage at his business partner, but as William Afton's first twisted experiment to push Henry to make the mimic like Edwin did, out of grief. And it works. Just like in the novels, Henry, in his grief and rage at losing his daughter, creates an animatronic to try and bring his daughter back, giving it the same brown hair and green eyes as his beloved Charlie. And this time, the agony of his loss seeps into the metal of the animatronic, bringing the mimic reprogram to life. But Henry's pain is too deep, and he attempts suicide, using the animatronic recreation of his own daughter, leaving William to swoop in and claim Henry's recreation of Charlie, Henry's baby, for his own. William gives it a new paint job, one to pass off the animatronic as being in Elizabeth's image rather than Charlie's, but at the end of the day, the baby still isn't his. Of course, however, things would soon fall apart for Afton, beginning with the death of his son, the discovery of Remnant, and the powers of the afterlife, leading him down a road of death and misery for the next 60 years of his miserable life.